Hello, my dear friends. How are you doing? Hope you are having an amazing day and not having to deal with drama. Ready for new stories I have for you today? Let's go to the first one. And don't forget to listen to the end of the story, guys, to hear my insights. Enjoy the stories, and don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, don't forget to leave a comment. I, 46 female, am still trying to untangle the wreckage my late husband, Mark, left behind. His sudden death 2 years ago revealed secrets that shattered not only my life, but also the already strained relationship I had with his children, Emma, 34 female, and Jake, 32 male. They've blamed me for everything, dragged me through court, and now they're demanding I pay for the financial ruin they brought upon themselves. The story is messy. Mark and I were married for 8 years. When we met, he seemed like the dream man, charming, successful, and generous. He owned multiple profitable businesses, had an impressive home, and seemed to have his life perfectly in order. At the time, I was working a steady corporate job, not wealthy, but comfortable. Our marriage wasn't perfect, but I loved him. I believed in the life we were building together, even though marrying Mark meant stepping into a minefield when it came to his kids, Emma and Jake. From the moment we got together, they despised me. Emma and Jake were fiercely loyal to their mother, Linda. Even though Mark and Linda had been divorced for years before I entered the picture, Emma and Jake clung to the fantasy that their parents might reconcile. To them, I was an intruder, someone who had taken their father away from their mother. They never gave me a chance. At family events, they'd ignore me, or, worse, make passive-aggressive comments designed to make me feel unwelcome. Emma loved to bring up their parents' happy times together, saying things like, "Dad, remember when you and Mom took us to Paris? Those were the best days of my life." Jake, meanwhile, was more direct. Once, he sneered at me during a dinner and said, "So, are you going to quit your job now that Dad's paying for everything, or are you still pretending you're independent?" It hurt, but I tried not to let it show. I wanted to build a relationship with them, even if they weren't interested. I invited them to dinners, planned outings, and even suggested family therapy to help us all adjust to the new dynamics. But no matter what I did, it wasn't enough. They saw me as a gold digger, an outsider, and nothing more. Mark, for his part, avoided confrontation at all costs. He'd shrug off their behavior, saying, "They just need time to come around." But time only seemed to make things worse. When Mark passed away suddenly from a heart attack, it was devastating. I was overwhelmed with grief. But Emma and Jake didn't seem to care. They barely acknowledged me at the funeral, focusing instead on reminiscing with their mother and making plans to go through Mark's estate. A week later, Emma and Jake started demanding details about their father's assets. They assumed they were entitled to everything: the businesses, properties, and savings. In their minds, I was just the new wife who would step aside and hand it all over to them. What they didn't know, and what I was just beginning to discover, was that Mark had left me with nothing. As I began sorting through Mark's financial records, I uncovered a secret that flipped my world upside down. Mark had been having an affair for years with a woman named Vanessa. I had no idea she existed until I found bank transfers, property deeds, and company records with her name on them. Mark had secretly transferred all his profitable businesses, properties, and assets into Vanessa's name. The luxurious lifestyle we had been living, our home, vacations, cars, had been built on debt. He had maxed out credit cards, taken out loans, and funneled money to Vanessa while leaving me in debt. By the time the truth sank in, I realized that Vanessa now owned everything of value. I was left with nothing but debt, mountains of it, and no way to dig myself out. Emma and Jake, however, didn't know about Vanessa. They assumed I had inherited everything and began accusing me of stealing their father's money. They hired lawyers and sued me, claiming I was hiding assets and refusing to give them their rightful inheritance. I tried to explain to them that there was nothing left to inherit, but they didn't believe me. They were convinced I was lying, hoarding money, and keeping them from what they thought they deserved. For months, they dragged me through a grueling legal battle, forcing me to reveal the betrayal of discovering Mark's affair and the financial disaster he had created. The court case was not nice, to say the least. Their lawyers demanded endless documents, bank statements, and explanations. Every time I had to hand over proof that there was no hidden fortune, it felt like a fresh wound. Emma and Jake sat in the courtroom glaring at me, convinced that they were moments away from uncovering some grand conspiracy. Eventually, the truth came out. The court ruled in my favor, confirming that Vanessa owned everything of value. Emma and Jake were forced to drop the lawsuit, but by then, they had spent almost all of their savings on legal fees. You'd think that would be the end of it, but it wasn't. Emma and Jake were furious. Instead of directing their anger at their father or Vanessa, they blamed me. They accused me of withholding information about Vanessa to spite them, and claimed that if I had told them about her earlier, they wouldn't have wasted their money on lawyers. Then came the most absurd demand of all. They wanted me to cover their legal expenses. I was floored. Not only had they treated me horribly for years, but they had also dragged me through court, causing me immense stress and financial strain, and now they expected me to bail them out? I told them no. I wasn't responsible for their father's actions, and I certainly wasn't going to pay for their mistakes. They called me selfish and accused me of profiting off their father's death, which is laughable, considering that I'm still struggling to pay off the debt he left behind. They've since gone around telling mutual acquaintances that I'm a bitter bee by not being upfront about Vanessa. They've painted me as a vindictive stepmother who kept them in the dark out of spite. A few people have even suggested that I should have been more transparent to avoid the lawsuit, but I don't think it would have made a difference. Emma and Jake never wanted to hear anything I had to say, unless it fit their narrative of me as the villain. This whole ordeal has left me drained, emotionally, financially, and mentally. I wanted to be a good stepmother. I wanted to have a family. But Emma and Jake never gave me a chance, and now they're refusing to take responsibility for their own actions. So, Reddit. Am I the a-hole for not telling my late husband's kids about his mistress and refusing to cover their legal expenses after they sued me? Emma and Jake sound like they've been looking for someone to blame for their father's poor choices, and unfortunately, OP has been their scapegoat. The fact that they dragged OP through court, refused to listen to the truth, and are now demanding OP pays for their legal expenses is mind-boggling. Their father made the decisions that led to this disaster, not OP. OP has already been through enough. OP needs to stand her ground and not let them guilt-trip her. And now let's hear the community's opinion. Wow, what a mess. And none of it is your fault. Not the a-hole. Mark left everyone in the dark about his financial dealings and his affair, and now you're stuck dealing with the fallout. Emma and Jake clearly had no interest in hearing your side of the story until it was too late. And even now, they refuse to take responsibility for their actions. They should be angry at their father and Vanessa, not you. Honestly, it sounds like you've shown more patience than they deserve. Not the a-hole. You've been through so much already. Losing your husband, discovering his betrayal, and being left with nothing but debt. And now his kids want to pin all their problems on you? It's not your job to fix the mess their father created. The fact that they're blaming you instead of Vanessa, who actually has the money, is ridiculous. They're acting entitled and immature. I'm sorry you're dealing with this, but you're not wrong for standing your ground. Honestly, I think Emma and Jake were never going to believe you no matter what you said. They already decided you were the bad guy from the beginning, not the a-hole. You tried to explain the truth, but they ignored you and dragged you through court instead. Now they're upset because their stubbornness cost them everything? That's not on you. You've done nothing wrong here. I, 39 female, came from a very wealthy family. I never had to struggle for anything because my mom and dad would always give it to me. I can say that I grew up spoiled, but I grew out of that phase once I had my twins. Since I was so spoiled and never got in trouble for anything as a teenager, I was always going to parties with my friends, doing D, and drinking alcohol. Then, at 16, I found I was pregnant and gave birth at 17 to my two beautiful twins, girl and boy. Thankfully, my parents were supportive and helped me through the process. My parents had set up a trust fund for me when I was a kid, and I wasn't able to access until I was 18. So when I turned 18, I moved out and got a condo. I only used my trust fund whenever it was for my kids, rent, or essentials around the house. I also took some out and put it in an emergency fund. I got a job at my dad's company, so I was able to live comfortably, but not keep up with the lifestyle I grew up with. When I was 31, I met my now husband and his daughter, who was 4 years younger than my kids. Me and my husband dated for about 4 years, then we got married 2 months before my twins' birthday. On my twins' 18th birthday, my parents gifted them each a trust fund of their own. It summed up to $200,000 each. Now my twins are both 22 years old, and both are thriving. I like to give myself a pat on the back for how I raised them, and not how my parents raised me. Now, on to the issue at hand. My stepdaughter is now 18 years old, and for the past couple of months, she's been saying how she couldn't wait to get her trust fund like my twins, and I didn't know if she would or not because I never knew about the twins. Now, when her birthday came around, she did get money, just not the trust fund from my parents. Instead, they gave her a car, but to say she was disappointed is an understatement. She said we didn't love her because she wasn't blood, and that we've always treated her different because she wasn't my daughter, which wasn't true. I've loved her since the day I met her, and I've always treated her like she was one of mine. Then she asked me why I didn't tell her she wasn't getting a trust fund, since that was all she was talking about. I told her I didn't know if she was getting one or not. She then told me that I should have made one for her myself. I tried to tell her that it wasn't possible, but she didn't want to listen to me and just said she hated me. So, am I the a-hole? Edit. I would just like to add beforehand, my husband has told her multiple times to not be expecting the trust fund because she might not get it, and I also told her that I didn't know if she would get one or not, but she has chosen to ignore us. Edit 2. So I had a talk with my parents and stepdaughter. I did ask my parents how they didn't give her a trust fund like my twins. They said that since they didn't know stepdaughter that well, that they felt like a trust fund was too personal because they didn't have the grandparent-grandchild relationship, which is understandable. My parents rarely got to see stepdaughter because she just moved in with me and my husband when we got married, and my mom and dad like to travel a lot, so they really only got to see her on holidays and birthdays. That's why they got her a car, because it's not that big of a present, because her last car was wrecked up pretty bad. I also apologized to her for not just telling her that she wasn't getting a trust fund and letting her get her hopes up, but I did explain to her that she shouldn't just expect something just because someone else got it, especially something as personal as a trust fund. She apologized for how she reacted and thanked my parents for the car, but I think she's still disappointed. So I plan to take her out of the country for a birthday trip with my husband and the twins. Also, for anyone wondering, the car she got was a 2023 BMW 5 Series. Not the a-hole. Your stepdaughter has been part of the family for only 4 years. Why would she feel entitled to a trust fund from your parents? How has your husband handled her expectations? So, you married her dad 4 years ago, and somehow she felt that when she turned 18, she'd be entitled to a generous trust fund from your parents. Is that correct? That's kind of crazy, to be honest. But what's crazier is that nobody, not you, not your husband, sat her down when she started to bring this up and say it probably will not happen. Not the a-hole. It's a wild expectation for a 17-year-old to have, but one of her parents should have curtailed that expectation before it got out of control. Your parents gave her a car, and she didn't appreciate it? What a spoiled brat. Your parents don't owe her crap. The entitlement. Why does she want a trust fund from your parents? Why not from her mother or her maternal grandparents? My wife and I are expecting a baby girl in February. My wife has decided the baby will be very low contact with my side of the family because she doesn't like their humor. Very harsh, lots of sarcasm. They feel she is wrong to ask them to change, and it should be a good enough compromise to not do it to her or the baby, but she doesn't want our daughter exposed to it. She told my mom point blank that she is the worst offender, and the game she plays with my step-grandma is a big part of the reason. They like to compete to see who can think of the worst insult. I'm sad about this, but have decided to back my wife, so my mom knows she is not going to see much of our daughter. With that being said, I don't think she would be invited to the shower because it seems tacky to invite her to a gift-giving event for a child she can't see. Well, my wife came to me furious a few days ago because my mom declined, didn't send a gift, and didn't send a nice text or anything. I pointed out that she is hardly going to be let to see the baby, so why would she? My wife said it was a snub and I should be angry. I said that I honestly wasn't, and I can't believe she invited my mom. It seems a bit entitled, like her money is good enough, but she isn't. My wife blew up and kicked me out of our room overnight to calm down. I'm refusing to apologize as I really don't think she should have invited her. Not the a-hole. Your wife needs a reality check. She can't expect your mom to play finance grandma while restricting her from being an actual grandma. Your wife set the boundaries, and now she's mad about it. That being said, you are also the a-hole for going along with your wife's plan. Your wife doesn't like their humor? Oh well. I'm sure there are things you don't like about her family. Would it be okay for you to decide that your child can't be around them? Not the a-hole. Your wife doesn't want your mom in your lives in any meaningful way, but she expects your mom to contribute to your lives in a materialistic way? You are correct. That is absolutely entitled. She wants her presence, but not her presence. Jeez. Not the a-hole. But I'm really feeling puzzled here as to why you accepted this level of contact in the first place, if it is just that your wife doesn't like their humor. unless you have left out that your family is actively cruel and rude to your wife, and does it to her all the time against her wishes, breaks a lot of other boundaries. Your wife sounds like she just wants her way, and you aren't really being allowed your own opinion. And, it is absolutely entitled to expect gifts for your child while not letting that person see them. Gifts shouldn't buy a relationship, obviously, but you also don't tend to give them if there isn't one, as they are part of building a relationship. My half-sister, 17, nearly destroyed an innocent man's life, and she didn't get in trouble for it. She was texting her dad about this older man, 40, she was talking to, and saying how she was falling in love with him. He was very concerned and reached out to my mom to see if she was aware of what was going on. They were recently divorced and it has been very messy. My mom claimed that there was no harm as they were only friends and they were only talking. He asked my sister and I if we knew this guy, but we didn't know him either. My half-sister was telling us more stuff like how she agreed to be his girlfriend, how they went to the beach, etc. The last text she sent was she was going on vacation with this guy and to never expect to hear from her again. We kept asking our mom and she kept saying she knew the whole situation and it was fine. My sister and I were so concerned that this guy was going to take her away that we called the cops to help us figure out what to do. The cops showed up at my mom's place of work to question her and showed up at this guy's house to question him too. Thankfully, the cops were able to find out that my half-sister was actually stalking this guy, who turned her down because he knew she was underage. She works at a cleaning company who cleans the gym he works out at. He gave the cops his phone and computer to show he wasn't hiding anything, and they let him go. He had his lawyer draw up papers to sue my half-sister. He was getting death threats and threats to shut down his business because of her joke. We told him if he sued, we would testify on his behalf. My half-sister told everyone that it was a joke and that we shouldn't have taken it seriously. My mom thinks it's hilarious and that it was a wonderful prank. I tried telling her that she almost destroyed an innocent man's life by lying, but she claims that my half-sister didn't lie. I told my mom that she should have punished my half-sister, and her response was to ask if she should beat her like how she beat me and my sister. I told her no, that she should take away her phone, ground her from social media, or something, but she won't because actually the only ones who were in trouble were my sister and me. I told my mom that I hope my half-sister gets sued so she can learn that there are consequences for her actions. My mom demands an apology from both of us for calling the cops and for being on this guy's side. Few people told us that we did the right thing, but other friends and family have my mom's side and believe we are in the wrong. Am I the a-hole for telling my mom that my half-sister should be sued to keep her accountable for her actions? Not the a-hole. You are completely right. She could have ruined his life. She has certainly ruined part of it with her stalking and lies. Your mother is enabling her horrible behavior. It would probably be best for your half-sister to face consequences. Doubt she faced any before. You 100% did the right thing. I would distance myself from both of them. Not the a-hole. This isn't a joke. It's seriously impacted an innocent man's life. Witness the threats he's been receiving, and could have damaged his marriage irreparably if he wasn't able to prove his innocence. Your mother and sister are a-holes. Your sister is fortunate she isn't facing criminal charges. Stalking is a felony, and I'm sure there are other charges that could be leveled against her as well. Testify on behalf of the man whose life she very nearly ruined. If he sues and wins, it might help restore his reputation. When it comes right down to it, a man's good name is his most valuable possession, and your sister has dragged it through the mud. You did the right thing. Your mother and sister are both clearly delusional and in need of professional help. She could have ruined this man's life. It sounds like he's still trying to clear his name. There needs to be consequences, and you are not the a-hole. And as far as your family contacting you, have they got the whole story? Or have they got your mom's version? Because I'm sure it's not the same. Perhaps you need to clue them in also. Every year, my family takes a weekend trip in December to the same place, 3 to 4 hours from where we all live. Any given year, there's between 14 to 20 plus of us. My mom foots the bill for the hotel for everyone. This year, myself, 25 female, and my boyfriend, 26 male, split a connected room with my cousin, Allie, 21 female, and her boyfriend, Craig, 21 male. Most of us hadn't met Craig yet before this trip. We're a generally loud, friendly bunch, but we all have big personalities. All of our keys were programmed to open all of the rooms. This morning, my mom made breakfast in the room we'd all chosen to congregate in, and it was ready around 9. It's normal for everyone to roll in as we wake up, but if you sleep late, you also may have someone pop in to mess with you. Around noon, my brother, a child, went to the rooms where cousins were sleeping and poked at them, saying, "Wake up," and left. Some did, some kept sleeping. We realized Allie was at breakfast, but Craig wasn't. I jokingly said I'd get him, went to their room, turned on the lights, and said, "Good morning, sunshine. Breakfast is ready when you are." Then I left. The door connecting our two rooms was closed when I went back to my room. I heard Craig yelling at Allie, so I started listening, and he was cussing at her about me turning on the lights, calling me every name under the sun, etc. So I knocked on the door and said, "Hey, buddy, these walls aren't as thick as you think they are." He yelled back, "Good. I hope you can hear me, B. Who the duck do you think you are?" Honestly, I saw red. More words were exchanged. After, I went to the congregating room and told the family what happened. Next thing I knew, Allie's dad was driving Craig home, and Allie, her mom, and brother were also leaving because they rode together. They were barely here 12 hours. Allie is pissed at me. It seems like her parents have taken Craig's side. My mom and grandma are concerned that Craig has fooled them into thinking he's Mr. Nice Guy, and that behind closed doors, he's mean to Allie. He has always been very shy and sweet and quiet. I don't know what I think about that in particular. I just know I hate him, and I'm too close to be objective. Especially because maybe our family games are normal and fun to me, but totally absurd to an outsider. So please, opine, because if I'm in the wrong here, I'll own it, and I could see it both ways. Am I the a-hole? Edit 2. I was asked to add my following reply to one of the comments. We didn't wake him until noon. Breakfast had been ready for 3 hours. We also had plans he was holding up. I also just found out that Allie's parents actually took him home out of respect because they were displeased with his behavior as well. Apparently, Allie's dad wanted us to sit down and speak civilly, which I would have been so happy to do, about what happened, but Craig refused because he said he was too upset. I also learned Craig lied about when I came into the room and said I slammed all the doors, drawers, and that I said other things I hadn't. My mother also learned he had broken a wine glass in the room the night prior, before any of this happened. No explanation given. Could it have been an accident? We didn't hear anything in our room, but odd. Yes, some of your habits are, how to put it, a bit too much. If I were on this holiday with you, I'd be extremely weirded out if 20 people I didn't know had the key of my room, and I'd be very pissed if a random stranger entering my room and demanding me to wake up. I may be resting. A vacation is for resting. I may be feeling unwell. I may be in the shower. I may be naked. Yours is extremely intrusive behavior. Everyone sucks here. If someone I don't know comes into my private room to wake me up, I'd be pissed. Sure, he shouldn't have called you names, but you need to understand that not everyone is going to be okay with your family lack of boundaries. We're a generally loud, friendly bunch, but we all have big personalities. Let me translate. We're obnoxious a-holes who refuse to accept that other people might like some peace and quiet. You're the a-hole. My 46 female daughter just turned 17 last week. She loves surprises, so I threw her a surprise party. I called, texted, contacted all her friends and invited them. My daughter has been best friends with Matt, 17 male, since elementary school, and they started dating 2 years ago. Matt is a really sweet boy, and he treats my daughter very well. I called Matt to tell him about the party, and he was a bit confused. He told me that he and my daughter had broken up 2 weeks ago. That was news to me. My daughter was still going out at least twice a week, always telling me she was going out with Matt. She had even told me she was going out with Matt the night before I called Matt. I still have no idea where she's been going, and it's very concerning to me that it must be something bad because she's keeping up the ruse that she's still with Matt. Plus, she's been hanging out with some new people in the last few months. One of them is a person who my daughter used to joke about being a hard D addict. She doesn't make those jokes anymore, but she used to make them very seriously and frequently. So that concerns me a lot. I didn't say this all to Matt. I apologized for calling him and told him to have a good day. Before I hung up, he asked me if he actually could come to the party, as he really wants to talk to my daughter and she's been distant at school. Again, Matt is a really good kid, and he's known my daughter for a long time. If she was really into something dangerous, like D or alcohol abuse, which sadly run in my family, talking to him might be able to help her out. So I told Matt he could come to the party, but he had to leave if my daughter asked him to leave. Well, the party was last week, and my daughter was surprised by all her guests. But she got really mad when she saw Matt. I saw her having an angry conversation with him, and he left shortly after that. After the party, she told me that she and Matt were broken up, and she couldn't believe he had come. I told her that I had known that they were broken up, but I invited him because I thought it might be good for him to talk to her. She was livid. She called me a terrible mother, and she's been cold to me ever since. I understand how I could have hurt her, but I still don't know if I was fully in the wrong in this situation. I love her more than anything, and I really wanted to do what was best for her. I'm sort of lost, so I was hoping you all could give me a judgment so I can understand this situation better. Am I the a-hole? You're the a-hole. You invited him thinking they were dating. Fine. He told you they were broken up, so you assumed he wasn't coming. Fine. He asked if he could come anyway. Correct response? Let me ask my daughter if she wants you to come. Edit. If it wasn't a surprise party. Since it was, then it should have just ended there. Instead, you snuck it in on her, manipulatively. There's a lot of other things floating around this situation that are concerning and stuff that you aren't wrong about and should investigate more. But that was what your question was about, so that's the ruling. You're the a-hole for inviting him after you knew they'd broken up. You have no idea why they broke up. Maybe he cheated. Maybe he tried to move too fast. Or maybe she just liked someone else. The point is, you didn't know. Everyone sucks here. Your daughter is lying to you about where she was. Matt for asking to come to the party as a way of blindsiding your daughter. And definitely you for inviting your daughter's ex after he basically told you his intent was to blindside her at her party.